Morning. I hope you're all well in Philippines and magadang o magal po kamasta. Hopefully that's good. It's been a long time since I've been to the Philippines, but looking to get back soon. In the meantime, we're going to do some great Zoom calls, as I'm sure we've been doing for the last year and a half. Let me share my screen. Yeah, so once again, good morning. We've got a great, interesting 50 minutes of a whirlwind tour of building resilient and sustainable cities of the future. And as we walk this presentation, we're going to really realize that, now is the time to make that difference. Now is the time to make that change. It's not 10 years from now. It's not 20 years from now. It's actually starting now. So let's go through. Now, just as a bit of an introduction to myself, I'm the Global CTO for Digital Cities. Many years ago, Michael Dell said that, he saw the vision of what needed to happen in terms of modernization of cities, more efficient, more cleaner, more greener. And so he asked for this group to be started way back in 2017. And so he always had that vision that we could make a difference and Dell Technologies could be a key part of making that difference. So since that time, I've joined on board with that and been driving a number of different cities around the world. None more so than my home city right now where I'm speaking to you, which is Singapore. We're still, I hope, the #1 rated city in the world for being smart. But it's by no accident. Just like everything in life requires hard work, tenacity, and to keep coming back and again and never being satisfied, always looking to see what can you do next, what can you do next. So right here in Singapore, I've been helping a number of the different businesses and the cloud providers and the telcos write standards and cybersecurity standards to help drive that modernization of Singapore. And at the same time, we've employed a great team of architects because we need to scale this around the world. And so I'm really pleased to be managing some amazing smart city architects. So that's a little bit about myself, a little bit of the background of where we are. Because I must admit, a lot of people say to us, Dell Technologies or Dell, you make great laptops, you make great server storage, X, Y, Z, but they often don't know about many of the other practices like I'm describing to you here. So when we look at that vision and planning, well, what's in our themes? We know that this is a once-in-a-century opportunity to change, but what are the themes that we said that we need to do and our partners, working together in harmony need to do? And probably #1 right there was having that safe city and having a city that's more disaster resilient. And that for us has probably been the driving force from day one. But secondly, the urban development. So just making that central city much more cleaner, greener, smarter for all the citizens. But of course, that doesn't happen without focusing on mobility. You've seen, the first process was let's decongest, decarbonize as much as possible. The switch to electricity, the switch to, getting people out of their cars and building public transportation systems that are great to use so people will actually leave their cars. And I think that's always been a problem in life, is that we like our cars. And if the public transport infrastructure isn't there or isn't the way we need it to be, we're not really willing to let go of that car. And so a great deal of focus on the vehicles that are on the road today. Let's get them moving through the city better, smarter and cleaner. And at the same time, let's improve that public transport, because that's really the key to all in terms of decongestionizing cities. The other one that goes very much hand in hand to that is, of course, energy and sustainability. I think there's nowhere in the world that we can't go at the moment where we don't hear about sustainability and the linkage there to energy. So this is a big area that we chose to focus our business on. As well as wellness and citizen health, and no more so than in these pandemic times, to have a greater look at, can we do better, can we bring solutions to the market that make sense to deliver citizen wellness and citizen health in a much better way. Now, strangely, on the back of that, about 2.5 years ago, we said, wouldn't it be good if we included an education portfolio that was very focused around that city and around that classroom experiences? And we also set it up sort of, students working from, tablet PCs and working from home locations. And now when we'd set that up, we'd never even heard of the word COVID or the pandemic that was coming. So of course, this was kind of interesting that we'd actually sort of set up this home, working from home model, and students working from home. And so that was another great line of business, and we continue to grow that area, as I'm sure that you all will. Now, the governments themselves, they're going through that transformation changes. These sessions you're going to hear over the next hours and days is going to be really focused around government application modernization, data centers. You'll hear lots about Kubernetes and microservices, I'm sure. So that's absolutely an area of our focus as well. And finally, that smart industry, setting up industry zones themselves that are much smarter, that attract people to come and set up their manufacturing bases there or their office bases there in a clean and sustainable way. So that portfolio right there is what we said that really matters, and what we're delivering back into the business to our partners and customers. Now, a little bit more of a zoom down into some of those themes is pretty straightforward. Most of the cities and people that come to us, they say, look, I just want my city to operate a bit better or a lot better, depending on where they are. But they definitely want their citizens to feel safe. And around the world, there are many places where citizens don't feel safe today. So we continue to drive solutions through the different countries and cities where citizens can have a more enjoyable experience in their city. Without fear. So again, that's a key driver. But keeping those energy supplies running is critical as well in times of disasters and just general maintenance issues. So sort of keeping the eye on the energy, managing the grid well, all part of keeping a well-managed city. A city is nothing without its power, after all. But of course, emergencies do happen. And there's always scope and opportunities for you to improve, whether that's an ambulance, fire, or a police service, or any other type of emergency services. What solutions would you be putting in place? What can we do to improve? Can we get ambulances from A to B quicker? And these are just some of the areas that we're looking at. But building those smart industrial states, putting that healthcare first is where a lot of the cities really want to be putting themselves, especially now in the pandemic times. Building that smart transportation services, but very importantly, connecting citizens to their government and government vice versa. So that we really need to understand the values and what people are thinking so that we can change policy. So IT has so much role to play here in helping, assisting that harmony between citizens, business, and the government itself. And I mentioned earlier about great transportation and services. Without that, it's really tough to becoming a smart city at all if you really don't have those great transport services in place. And I mentioned as well earlier about government transformation. Throughout the world, we've been working on many programs to be able to make government more simple, to be able to take perhaps something like 50 agencies of government and put them onto one authentication platform, one biometric authentication, so that I can read my tax, I can renew my driving license, I can renew my passport. And all these processes can usually be executed and run within 15 minutes with one single sign-on. So this trustworthy government service is really a key thing. But also, we've seen in a lot of countries as well that we need to produce food more efficiently, more clean. Clearly, it would be great to have less pesticides in some of these foods as well. So how do we make more efficient food production? How do we grow food in cities? And that's something that in Singapore now, we are really dedicated to being able to produce our own food. Because at the moment, we really just pretty much import most of our food, about 90%. And we really want to move away from that. We want to get to more food sustainability on our own, at least sort of 30 to 40% in the coming years. And finally, I mentioned as well that switch to solar and renewable powers is really one of those key parts as well that we've seen as really important, and the type of work that our customers and partners are coming to us and asking for support for. And finally, the advanced communications, we are seeing that switch between 4G and 5G. And so what makes sense? How is your business going to take advantage of 5G? Will it make sense to take advantage of all the pieces right now, or is it more of a roadmap where you'll really go for the ones that you can monetize first? And so that's really part of that whole 5G journey. And it's incredibly important in that digital cities journey of transformation where the telcos fit into that model. We're driven kind of by one thing for sure in our digital cities model is that as people more and more move towards the capital cities, the tier 1, the tier 2 cities, they move out of the countryside and the hinterlands, is that it's producing huge demands on cities, in every aspect of resource, affordable housing, security, sewage, the transportation system. It's a huge load. And the thing is, if people are not focused right now on developing that roadmap, using that smart technology, you're going to end up in a rather dystopian city. And just as I'm illustrating here from the future, that these are not really the pleasant cities that any of us would want to live into future. But in an unchecked environment, this is the kind of world that we could end up being in. Now, the world we see is more perhaps what you see here on the right, which is a project that we've been working on. Which is a more clean and green, a completely, carbon neutral city. And for us, we see this as the utopian view. Now, many of us, of course, because money is limited, it's very difficult to move to that absolute utopian environment any short term. And I think we're all realistic and cognizant of that. But the most important thing is to have good governance and have a good plan in place. And there's a good chance that you'll get there to that utopian city environment. It's interesting, and I always like a few statistics that, according to the UN there, that the cities actually consume the 78% of the world's energy. That's absolutely massive, isn't it? And naturally, of course, they actually pump out, therefore, as a result, and are responsible for 60% of that greenhouse gas. So clearly, if we're serious about climate change, it's cities where we've really got to put a lot of focus into. And so I think, what we do in our planning, no matter what your job is out there, your planning and your process and models that you put together, really does matter so much now, more than ever in the history. So that's something that we've put a lot of focus into here. And, when we've looked across the world and we've seen that the 700 cities have basically committed to that net zero plan, we see that lots want to get to this renewable electricities. They want to be hydrogen fuel tech powered. Like, for example, a great look up. Always look to the Toyota Woven City. This is a vision for a future city driven by hydrogen and fuel cells, and it's absolutely amazing what they're visualizing there. And we've been working with Toyota here in many of the different areas and discussions on how to make that real. Here in Singapore, we're doing more, perhaps less technical things. In some areas, we're planting lots of trees. So, literally, if I was to walk outside my house here, I will see, thousands and thousands of new trees literally being planted into every conceivable square meter of Singapore. It's quite amazing to see. And if you haven't been here for a while, when you come back to Singapore, where did all these trees come from? It's absolutely amazing to see. But of course, moving towards that paperless environment is also a key part of that journey. And so I always sort of say to ourselves, is this enough? Can we be doing more? Where do we need to look to next? What is a circular economy? How should we build that? And we're doing a few of those right here now in Singapore in terms of how are you able to recycle that waste to create a complete circular economy, from the production into the consumption back into the recycling process. And so there are many areas there that you can explore. It's not my thing today to go through every single one of those building blocks. I could probably spend like the whole day on each one of those. They're kind of amazing. But really just to get a sense of the areas that you can explore in that journey. We always look to the United Nations now, the sustainable goals in terms of the greener sustainability overall, and we look to those priorities and we say, when we build solutions or when we make a change, what are we doing in any of those areas? And basically we're making sure that we're addressing any number of these different areas. Now, as we are IT, of course, we're going to have much more influence in goal at number 11's, sustainable cities and communities, but we'll also have climate action, life below water. We're doing lots of projects on fish farming, for example. That will be one area there as well as life on land, developing better urban consumption models and farming consumption models. So there are many areas that when you think, get up at the start of the day, think about, what areas, and I wake every day, I wake up and I think, which area or solution can I build today that addresses some of those? And so it all again starts with that sustainability and what you do at home. So what we do in Dell matters. The way we recycle, the way that we use the right materials, the way we have the packaging, all of this matters, and it should matter to everyone, and I'm sure everyone on this call today is very much in that same situation. So when we look at the portfolio that we looked at earlier, we saw those portfolios down the left-hand side there, and we said, what we really need to do is we need to make sure that those are connected. They cannot be done in silo. They really should be developed as a connected model through what we call a digital supporting framework. And without that framework that you see at the bottom there, it's really hard to get success because you end up building lots of little silos that don't really talk to each other very well. So that's one of our focuses, that cybersecurity overlay and underlay at both ends, and also having that framework that connects all the pieces together. And whilst we won't have much time to do the deep detail today on that, that's something I really focus everyone. So no matter what your business, always look to your digital backbone and your framework model. Now, where do digital cities get deployed? Most of our digital cities today and smart cities, our customers are building their data centers, their enterprise cloud. So they have their own private clouds, and they tend to build up most of their services in that. But we're also seeing now that the telecommunications companies, and as I mentioned earlier, 5G is becoming a very interesting proposition. So people are saying, like, I've got this 5G, now what kind of workloads and payloads can I put on that to monetize? So we're seeing telcos doing more and more in that smart cities, digital cities space as well. It goes without saying that the global cloud service providers are doing their part as well in being able to provide services, as well as the local service providers within the different countries that have unique offerings that perhaps can be different from the global ones themselves. For us in Dell Technologies, our enterprise cloud, we scale out across all those different cloud models, be that telco, global or local. So for us, we're very agnostic to that, and we just enjoy architecting and building solutions across that model. We rely on, of course, those best-in-breed ISV partners, software partners in the Philippines, software partners in Singapore, USA, and around the world to build and deliver those outcomes. And again, some of those strategic partners with Intel and NVIDIA help deliver those types of solutions. So I sort of made an interesting list here and said, here's kind of like the restaurant menu of all the cool stuff that you can look to. And this is actually just a smaller list. But how are you going to bring value to your business? In using your IoT, using your machine learning, all these areas are possible areas for development. I'm not going to go through each one. There's so many. I think just to sort of focus a little bit on the top left there, smart parking has been something that's been really big for us. Noise, urban maps, noise, pollution, traffic congestion, smart lighting, waste management, and smart roads. Those have been some of our top call-outs. But again, as I mentioned, that there's smart farming, and then smart agriculture, logistics, smart water. All these areas are areas of great interest that we should all be embracing. And a lot of our focus recently switched to logistics, because a lot of people are now switching their vehicles from diesel or petrol vehicles into electric vehicles. And so, what does that mean in terms of building models, in building digital twins and operational models for electric vehicles, which have a different profile to petrol and diesel trucks, because electric batteries take time to charge up, and therefore you have to be more mindful about how you're doing your actual logistics planning and things. And this is all workable and possible. So just some of the areas that we're really seeing. So I think that's there's an interest in all those areas for many people. When we look at the technology, and I think as you go through the sessions today, you're going to hit on many of these many times from all the different speakers. And so what we really have seen is in that development for architecture, the use of cloud computing, on-premise and hybrid cloud computing, multi-cloud is continuing to be used. So you'll definitely be wanting to explore more of that as you build your operational businesses, cities and agencies. We've seen, from cities with a few hundred sensors, now they've moved to a few thousand, and now we've got cities that are easily crossing the million sensor line. And that's kind of almost crazy thinking about all of these devices and all the traffic they're generating. So what we've learned, and you've got lots of examples right there in the Philippines, we said that not everything that we're catching from sensors or vision sensors or things like that need always to be sent to the data center. Let's make sense of what we're seeing closer to the edge, within a few milliseconds away. So let's not kludge up the data centers. Let's make sense of what we're seeing. If it's something that we need to act upon, we'll actually send that and alert that through to the data center and the relevant applications. But making sense of what's at the edge is going to be, it's going to be and is one of the biggest topics right now, to free up that traffic and to be able to have real-time meaningful results. So edge analytics and IoT are very much married together in that journey. And as we heard a little bit earlier, that machine learning, that deep learning, that high performance computing is all going to have a big play on the data that's coming from those streams, as well as from other different government departments, different agencies, or different business units. So faster and smarter ways of doing AI, machine learning processes is the way forward. And we Dell Technologies, we've been exploring in so many different areas and finding new techniques. One area we've got the streaming data platform, which is able to process data much faster. So that's just one area, of course, where we're applying analytics there to actually deliver outcomes faster. Now, one of my favorite topics right now, probably will be for the next few years, is digital twins. And so you're going to hear a little bit more about that later. But that's really a game changer. That's taking everything that's in the analog world and turning it into a digital model that you can do simulations, that you can do operations, and you can actually fully create autonomous cities or autonomous processes. So that's the beauty of digital twins. So that's a real game changer. And I hope at the end of these sessions that you've had coming forward, that you all go out with something in mind potentially to use digital twins. So if you're not a city, that's completely okay. If you're a manufacturer, that's going to be important to you as well. If you're a government agency, you're going to find that's going to be important to you. If you're in some vehicle management or logistics, that digital twin model is going to be really incredibly important. And so I do encourage you to. Now, a little bit of the crystal ball, but it's not really that much of a crystal ball, is quantum computing. You've probably heard lots about that. And if you haven't heard lots about it, give it 5 years and you're going to hear so much it's untrue. And so that's the next generation of computing. Of course, what it can do is incredible. I won't go into that now, but it's able to achieve things on compute platforms that would take a maths problem, what would probably take thousands and thousands of years of regular computers, can be done in seconds on quantum. So a lot of people are now starting to figure out where they want to use that. And so in banking business, we're actually seeing that as well right now, where quantum computers are needing to be used. Now, underlying that, get your data management in place. That has to be clean and green and smart. Getting that data exchange mesh that I talked about earlier, and having those network fabrics in place. Everything you do needs to be secured by a good cybersecurity model. You cannot live without good security now. We all know that. We've all seen what's happened. And look very much to use blockchain wherever possible to be able to authenticate and provide integrity to your transaction. So again, big topics that we're all dealing with right now. So the impacts we're looking for, nobody does cities for fun, smart cities for fun. There is something in mind. And so typically what we've seen is good smart cities are able to reduce crime, able to reduce commute times, are able to reduce greenhouse gases, lower that disease burden, and improve citizen services. And of course that's all underpinned by what we talked about earlier: automation, computer vision, mapping, data lakes, data warehouses, predictive analytics, open data portals, and much more. And so you have to be able to get your functional capabilities right, and you're probably doing a lot of that now already, and you're going to continue to revise that to deliver those outcomes people look. And I call them citizen KPIs, but if you're not from a city, and probably many of you are not, in the sense of a business model, and you're in manufacturing or logistics, you're also going to have your KPIs. The same functional capabilities will deliver those outcomes you're looking for. What do people come to us for? They come and say, help us, with the environment, help us with economic growth of our city or our region, help us engage with our citizens better, help us do the mobility, public safety, digital government. These ticks here really represent the KPIs that people have been asking us to deliver. Now, none of this, it's good to say all this, but you have to build a platform that's affordable. You kind of have to future-proof it, and technology. We're all from technology. We know how difficult future-proofing anything is. But what you certainly want to do is you want to future-proof your architecture as much as possible. So that you get a long life out of it as much as possible. The shelf life is good, right? I mean, it's quite possible to make a bad decision and find, hey, by next year I wish I'd done this, right? And so it's really important